The day is finally here. The Eagles have officially reported to training camp, but there's a much bigger storyline to discuss as the Birds have added yet another depth piece on the defensive line. Howie Roseman addressing needs before they even pop up. We'll break down the details of that. Speaking of the defensive line, another division rival continuing to screw up with their superstar player. And last but not least, could the newest young weapon to hit the free agent market end up in midnight green? We'll break it all down and more, but welcome in to A to Z Philly. I'm RB. Appreciate everybody who has stayed with us through the entire offseason, but we're back. We're finally here, and speaking of which, the MVP is back in town. He has arrived. Jalen Hurts rocking the Jordan bag. Obviously, everybody talking about the Jordan brand and being out there in Greece and, getting that mentorship and all that stuff, but the Super Bowl MVP is back. He's locked in. He's focused. Now, I'll be honest, I thought we would get a lot more substance today. I am recording this in the middle of the day, so who knows what'll come out later. But I thought we'd have our traditional media day and the press conferences. Nothing. No peeps from anybody other than Howie Roseman. We have to talk about it, man, because what have we been saying? The Eagles are going to go into training camp. They're going to assess what they have, and we trust in Howie Roseman to go out and get a player if necessary, right? We realize by now he's not taking the big swing. TJ Watt re-signed with Pittsburgh. Trey Hendrickson didn't even report today. He's sitting out. But Howie's not paying the big bucks. He is looking for those veteran depth pieces in the margins. And with nothing going on today, what does he do? Howie Roseman addresses a need before he even has to. He makes a move, and I just sit back and laugh. I laugh in a good way. It's like so comical how better he is at his job than these other front office executives. I mean, we don't have to worry about a thing when it comes to Howie Roseman. He's going to do what it takes to improve this team when needed. So anyway, we get a breaking news bomb from Tom Pelissero. Eagles are signing veteran defensive end Ogbo Okoronkwo, who formerly played with the Cleveland Browns. He played with the Texans as well, the Rams. And look, I'm not saying this is some superstar signing or this guy's going to be a double-digit sack guy, but we've been talking about leading up to camp the need for maybe adding a veteran edge rusher, right? Another depth piece, a rotation guy, whether it's a guy who's played in the league for 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is, they're going to need more depth, right? Because we love Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt, but who knows what those guys are going to be this year, right? Can they take another huge step? It's a lot of pressure. And Howie Roseman went out, he signed Azeez Ojulari to a one-year deal. He signed Josh Uche, and now he's brought in another solid quality role piece on the defensive end. Now, a little more context here. Tom says Okoronkwo has 17 career sacks. He has 7.5 over the past 2 years in Cleveland. More depth for Philly's fearsome front. And just one more thing, John McMullen reports that the Eagles not only signed Okoronkwo, but they also signed a defensive tackle in Jacob Sykes, who has not played in the NFL. He's bounced around a lot, still pretty young, but most recently with the Seahawks, and he had a tryout on Monday. They waived KJ Henry and Lou Nichols. So nonetheless, the Eagles continue to bring in depth. And again, when we look at this guy Okoronkwo, right? I mean, you may not be too familiar with him, but he's been in the NFL for 6 years. He's 30 years old. He's been around the league. He's been around different locker rooms. And maybe he can come in and give you 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks, right? And I think it's important to keep in mind that he played in Cleveland the last couple years, which was an absolutely awful team. Nobody really watching them, no hype around that team. They've been in the sewer pretty much. So to have 7.5 sacks on that team, especially when you're playing around a guy like Myles Garrett, is definitely huge. Now, the question is, why did the Browns get rid of him? He actually had 1 year left on his contract. Well, if we go over to this article on ESPN from about a month ago, the Browns released Ogbo Okoronkwo on Thursday. The pass rusher had 1 year left on a 3-year, $19 million deal that he signed in 23. And I actually watched this quick video where some Cleveland analysts were like really hype about this guy when he signed, but they said he just didn't fit the scheme that well. Anyway, he was a 2018 fifth-round pick of the Rams. He had 17 sacks in the past 6 years. But why? Right? Cleveland's getting younger. They are obviously in a full rebuild. Now, they did bring back Myles Garrett, who said he didn't want to come back. He wanted to play for a winner. They gave him $40 million a year. He couldn't turn it down, right? Like, too much money. But other than him, they go out, they draft Mason Graham with the 5th overall pick. They've recently drafted Isaiah McGuire, Carson Schlesinger this year. They have guys that are younger, that are in their first couple of seasons. They're trying to rebuild and pretty much remold that franchise and that defense. So that's why they were willing to part with a guy like Okoronkwo. And lucky enough, he's exactly what the Eagles probably needed right now. So Eagles add another depth piece. I'm very happy. They haven't even hit the field yet and started practicing. That comes tomorrow. But Howie's always looking for ways to improve the team. And I think it's a quality veteran depth piece at the edge. So exactly what I've been asking for. Shout out to Howie Roseman. Now, speaking of the defensive end, one guy in the division is probably boiling at this point, so unhappy because his owner might be one of the worst in the NFL. And I don't mean to disrespect Jerry Jones, but the sequence of events here with Micah Parsons makes me laugh. Matter of fact, I actually commented on this post here yesterday, and I had a ton of Cowboys fans coming at me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and the Cowboys still know what they're doing. Yeah, okay. Well, Jerry Jones randomly takes a shot at Micah Parsons, saying even if they sign him, right, and give him the extension that keeps going up in price now that all these other guys are signing, it doesn't mean they'll have him because he was hurt for 6 games last year. First off, he was only out for 4, so Jerry Jones can't even keep track of that. But in addition to that, he says they made Dak Prescott the richest player in football, and he missed 2/3 of the year. Okay, yeah, let's compare quarterback to defensive end. You see what I mean? I mean, how can these people be that bad? I love it because the Eagles are bathing in the Cowboys' misery, but it might get to a point here after this year. Like, they still haven't signed Micah Parsons. Howie Roseman would have signed him on the first eligible day, and he would have signed him before the price tag went astronomically into the stars. So I love it, man. And Micah Parsons reposts this tweet from J.J. Watt, who essentially responds to Jerry Jones, saying anytime you can publicly take a dig at your star quarterback and pass rusher, you just got to take it. Nothing makes guys want to fight for you more than hearing how upset you are that they got hurt while fighting for you. So obviously this was sarcasm here, but Micah Parsons sees it. He knows what's going on. There's been a lot bubbling this past year, and he knows they may not be big fans of him. Look, please let Micah Parsons go elsewhere. Matter of fact, this might play out perfectly where he ends up coming to Philly in a year and they just laugh in the Cowboys' face. I mean, I'm starting to actually think he might not re-sign in Dallas, which is just hilarious. And the Cowboys continue to be the Cowboys. Now, speaking of signing, Andrew Mukuba finally signed his rookie contract. The situation that we had referenced last week finally got solved, and a lot of these second-round picks started to sign. I'm not sure if he got a fully guaranteed. I think it was pretty close. But nonetheless, the Eagles should have their second-round rookie out there for camp tomorrow. And I think that's huge, right? We've talked about edge rusher, but also safety and the second corner is really those other highlighted positions to watch for in camp with these battles. You need Mukuba out there to see what he can do, and it looks like he will be on the field, which is big. Now, speaking of big, the Eagles ring for the Super Bowl, which came out a few days ago. They had a whole ceremony, and everybody was there from the Birds, all the guys from last year that have moved on. They got their rings, and trying to be as unbiased as possible, I think this is the best championship ring that I've ever seen in my life in any sport. I mean, they have all these custom engravings with the scores and quotes from Nick Sirianni and different players, and it's very customized to each person. And I see why the production was delayed, right? Because these are really special, and they have 2 Lombardis on there. And my favorite part, as you can see on the bottom right, the wings pop out. When you press a button, the wings have sayings on them, and they pop out like an eagle. So I just think this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, and I'm so happy that these guys get to experience this. I will certainly be trying to find a replica because that is special. That is a special, special piece of jewelry. So shout out to the Eagles. And last but not least, let's talk about Noah Fant. Noah Fant, a 27-year-old tight end who was released by the Seattle Seahawks. Jordan Schultz says young, talented player who should be an intriguing option. And a lot of people started to talk about Noah Fant. Could the Eagles go out and sign him? First-round pick back in 2019. Like I said, still pretty young. You look at his stats, 3 years in Denver, 3 years in Seattle. pretty solid player. Nice complimentary tight end. Gives you about 400, 500, 600 yards a year, 3, 4 touchdowns. And with the Dallas Goedert situation, obviously we're very glad he came back to the Eagles. But after this year, you're either going to have to draft one and develop. But if Goddard leaves, will they have the veteran mentorship? So, there's a lot that goes into it, right? We've talked about a guy like Kyle Pitts. Could they go out and sign Noah Fant? Maybe bring him in, try him out, see what he has. Maybe give him a cheap 1-year deal. Let him kind of learn a little bit more behind Dallas Goedert. And if Goddard does indeed move on next offseason, well, maybe Noah Fant can be your guy. What do we think about Noah Fant? He's had a solid career, not great, but not lackluster by any means. I believe he was in that Russell Wilson trade that sent him over to Seattle. So Noah Fant, pretty solid option, and a lot of Eagles fans have shut it down. Maybe he can go somewhere else and be a number 1 guy this year. That is very possible. But if the market is dried up and nobody wants to take a chance on him, I would not be opposed to bringing this guy in at least for a training camp tryout and see where it goes from there. So give me your thoughts on Noah Fant. Give me your thoughts on Ogbo Okoronkwo as the Eagles add another depth piece on the defensive line, and it has already begun. They have a lot of leverage, a lot of assets to use, and Howie Roseman's not sitting back saying, hey, we're the champs, we're on the high horse, come take us off. He's constantly looking for ways to improve the roster, and that's why he's the best GM in the NFL. Give me your thoughts down below. Training camp practice begins tomorrow. We'll cover it all. Appreciate you all for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.